Good evening, everyone. This is Geraldo Lemos from Belo Horizonte, Brazil. We are transmitting live from Portal Saber Espiritismo. I'm here with Marco Gandra and Silvana Saldanha, and we are going to have the program to know Spiritism number 15. You are all very welcome. We are transmitting for the DSN network, Discover Spiritism Network, Spiritism Dissemination Network, and also Kardec Radio from Virginia, USA, to all our viewers. Today we are going to talk about Allan Kardec's and Chico Xavier's work on the planetary transition, the law of destruction, and its relation with the planetary transition. The focus of our program today is the exile, as Allan Kardec himself related in his late book, The Genesis, and we are going to review some of his sayings. But first, we are going to see one saying of Chico Xavier. This was in Sacramento, Minas Gerais, as you know, the land of Eurípides Barçanufo, the apostle of the Minas Gerais Triangle, and as Eigorina Cunha, who was a niece, Eurípides Barçanufo niece. She was a very good friend of Chico Xavier and also a very good friend of mine. She himself told me this gathering with Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier was visiting Sacramento in one time and stayed there for the night at the Colégio Allan Kardec that she was the head of at that time. And this is also on a book of César Carneiro de Souza, a very interesting book. The name in English would be Valuable Teachings with Chico Xavier, in Portuguese, Valiosos Ensinamentos com Chico Xavier, de César Carneiro de Souza. And what Eigorina told me, and also told César Carneiro de Souza, was that conversation that she had with Chico Xavier at that time. Chico Xavier, as I told you, slept for the night at the Colégio Allan Kardec, and at breakfast he asked Eigorina, Eigorina, do you hear they're crying and they are wailing, don't you? And Eigorina replied, who's Chico? I do not understand you. And so that Chico Xavier explained, the evil and rebel spirits are being exiled from the earth. With Jesus' permission, the spiritual benefactors take them to the moon. From there, they are led to a much inferior world than ours. Mediumistically, I hear their crying. And of course, Eigorina told us that she was astonished, and watching her astonishment, Chico Xavier concluded, the moon is a platform of the earth. Do you hear their laments too, don't you, Eigorina? And she replied, no, Chico, I cannot hear anything. She was very moved by that. And of course, what is Chico Xavier talking about? Chico Xavier is talking about the exile, the deportation of the lower spirits from earth, that at the dawn at the night, he, with his superb mediumship, could hear. And one time Chico told myself that this kind of exile, it was done by force, that big ships, big astral ships would come to the dark side of the lower plans of life here on earth. And they, since World War II, they would take those spirits from those places and uh, leave them in the moon in a passage. They would stay in the moon, as Chico Xavier told me. The moon is a penitentiary ward, and they would stay there for a while, and then they would be exiled to a primitive world. Okay, is that is there any relation with this talk and Allan Kardec's work? Of course there is. And we can see the complete syntony, the complete understanding of this process through the works of Allan Kardec himself. As I told you, the book is the Genesis, Miracles and Predictions According to Spiritism, the last book that Allan Kardec himself published. The first edition was published in 6th of January 1868, and from that time until the death of Allan Kardec in 31st of March 1869, he published himself revised and published 4 editions. So the last edition of this book was the 4th edition, the one that was revised and supervised by Allan Kardec himself. So that's the one we are counting on, okay, on our broadcast today. And as we can see, the last subtitle of the chapter 18, The Time Has Come, Signs of the Times, that's the name of the chapter 18, the last chapter of this book. And the last subtitle is The New Generation. The New Generation, Allan Kardec wrote from the items 26 until the item 35, but today we are going to talk only about the items 26 to 28. So the new generation, item 26, Allan Kardec tells us, for mean to be happy on earth, it must be populated only by good spirits, incarnate and discarnate, who only want good. We have to understand that the earth cannot be a happy place because we don't have all the spirits that populated here on earth, on the crust, and also in the spiritual plans, good spirits, because we don't have them. If we could have them in the spiritual world and here on the crust of earth, of course we would be a happy world. But that's not the case, because we still have the majority of the people relating to ignorance, to crimes, to violence, to wars, to many of materialistic things that deviate the human heart and the human mind from their right pathway. That's the characteristic, the main characteristic of the world uh, of trials, proofs and trials, right? But Allan Kardec also tells us, he continues to show us, the time has come. A great emigration will happen among its inhabitants. So he is starting to tell us about the exile. A great emigration will happen among us here on earth. Those who do evil for evil and are untouched by the feeling of good, no longer worthy of the transformed earth, will be excluded because they would bring discord and confusion again and hinder progress. So that's the main reason it it is necessary that we have this exile, this uh, exclusion of a great deal of people, incarnate or discarnate, that are no longer worthy of the transformed earth. Why? Because Allan Kardec himself tells us that those people do evil for evil and are untouched by the feeling of good. And if they have the permission to stay here on earth, even in the spiritual plans, they would bring again discord, confusion, wars, and hinder progress. And the next, we can see also that Allan Kardec tells us, this will atone for their hardening in inferior worlds, where they will take their acquired knowledge and whose mission will be to advance them. They will be replaced by better spirits who will reign among them justice, peace, and fraternity. And so those spirits, uh, lower spirits related to evil and not touched by the good, they have to be responsible for their choices, and they will be expelled from Earth, because Earth is entering in a new age of progress, of spiritual progress, and they did not come with the pace necessary to enter this pathway, and because of their hardening, they have to reinitiate their education in inferior words, in primitive words. But they are not lost forever, of course. This is also a very good chance for them so that they can reinitiate their own progress. And as they are advanced spirits in relation with the primitive world where they are going to be, all the knowledge that they have here on earth will be of higher value there, and their mission there will be also to advance that primitive world. Chico Xavier himself told me that this world, this primitive world that is receiving the exiled from earth, is also governed by our Lord Jesus Christ. But it is in a stage of primitive living, and their humanity there are still living in the caves. And Chico Xavier told me that the name of this world is Quirom, and Quirom is from another planetary system, and it is in the material world very much related with Earth. It's very similar to Earth. in uh, the chapter of atmosphere. The animals there are very similar to ours. They have large oceans and fishes and mammals, and they have uh, large forests also, plants and higher lands also. They are very similar. The weather is very similar to ours. The atmosphere is very similar to ours, but there are two main differences according to Chico Xavier. Uh, as I told you, their humanity is still in a primitive way of living inside the caves, and also it is a much bigger world than Earth, as Chico told me. But as Allan Kardec is predicting, their emigration to this world would give them the responsibility to bring advancement to them. But first, uh, I would ask you, Gendra, to come back a little bit. Uh, the, the last sentence is very important because Allan Kardec is telling us that they will be replaced here on earth by better spirits. So the immigration, the exile of this group of people, of souls that are not related to spiritualism, are more related to materialistic uh, world, with evil, not touched by good. They are still in this process of going out from Earth, but they are, in the same time, they are being replaced by good spirits. And those spirits that are replacing them will install here on Earth a kingdom of justice, of peace, and fraternity. So that we must be very, very happy because of that, because we are in a dawn of a very important time, the time of the new generation that will bring Earth to its pathway, the right pathway of regeneration. Allan Kardec also told us the present generation will gradually disappear and the new one will succeed it. In the same way, without anything changing the natural order of things. So this is a natural process because those spirits that are departing, they are being replaced by spirits more compromised, with more related to spiritualism. That's very important. And as Allan Kardec is saying, this is not a marvelous thing, an extraordinary thing. This is in the law of nature, the natural order of things. And also, Allan Kardec himself tells us everything will happen outwardly, as usual, with this one fundamental difference. For a part of the usual incarnating spirits will no longer incarnate. In a child who is born, instead of a backward, evil inclined spirit, the one who is born will be a more advanced and good inclined spirit. So much less a new body regeneration than a new generation of spirits. So this is a natural process. The ones that used to incarnate here on earth, as Chico Xavier himself told me, until the year 2000, it was possible that all of us incarnating here on earth could be becoming from the lower plans, the shadows, and the dark plans of Earth. So until the year 2000. But the year 2000, it is the borderline. It is the turning point. From that year on, all the spirits coming from the lower plans of Earth, the shadows, and also the dark plans, the deep dark plans here on Earth, they would be forbidden to incarnate here. So that from that time on, another generation of souls coming from the higher planes here on Earth and also from other regeneration planets from all over the galaxy, they would be coming to help us uh, uh, feel, to help us leave this transition so that the newborns are not the usual incarnating spirits that related to the evil plans or the materialistic plans. And instead of that, instead of backward evil inclined spirits, we would see the coming of newborns that are more advanced and good inclined spirits. So we are talking about a new generation of souls, of spirits, right? And this is very important for the transitory time that we are living on. In the item 27, Allan Kardec also tells us the present time is one of transition. The elements of the two generations shuffle and mixed up. Place it at the intermediate point, we witness the departure of one and the arrival of the other, and each one is distinguished in the world by its own characteristics. The succeeding two generations have opposing ideas and points of view by the nature of moral dispositions, but above all, by intuitive and innate dispositions, and it is easy to distinguish to which of them each individual belongs. So this is the very face of the times we are living on. The present time is one of transition, and we can see the elements of the both two generations colliding and shuffle and mixed up. We can see that because we are placed in an intermediate point of view, intermediate point where both generation is still living, is still influencing all kinds of stuff here on earth, all kinds of institutions, and also in the spiritual world, so that we can distinguish them. How we can distinguish them? By their own characteristics. They have opposing ideas, opposing points of view. One is more related to crime, to violence, to war, to selfish, to pride, and also to the notion of the materialistic world, and the other one is more related to goodness, to fraternity, to solidarity, to knowledge, to science, to art, to sensibility, to spiritualism. So it's a shock of two paradigms, the paradigm of materialistic beings and the paradigm of spiritualistic beings. That's the shuffle and mixed up that we are living on nowadays. And of course, by observing those two groups of souls here on earth incarnates, and also in the spiritual world discarnates, we can distinguish them. Allan Kardec tells us the new generation, having to found the age of moral progress, is distinguished by a generally precocious intelligence and reason, coupled with the innate feeling of goodness and spiritualistic beliefs. It is the undisputed sign of a certain degree of advance. It will never be composed exclusively of eminently superior spirits, but of those who, having already advanced, are willing to assimilate all progressive ideas and are able to support the regenerating movement. So first, Allan Kardec is telling us about the new generation, their characteristics that we can observe. This new generation has a very important task, a very important goal, a very important mission, and their mission is to found the age of moral progress here on earth. So the moral values, the ethics, in all ways, in all institutions of the life here on earth and also in the spiritual plans, is their goal, the moral progress. And they can be distinguished by what? Because they have a very precocious intelligence and also a very precocious reason. They are easily coupled with an innate feeling of goodness, of fraternity, of solidarity, and also they have spiritualistic beliefs. They are not materialistic persons or souls. So those four characteristics are the ones that we can distinguish them. And Allan Kardec also tells us that it is undisputed, those four characteristics, that they are a sign of a previous advancement. So they are spirits more mature spirits that are incarnating here on earth, especially from the year 2000. And I bet you in your family, as we all are experiencing this, can relate and see that happening in our own families, with the children that we have in our own families. They, of course, are more intelligent, they're more sensitive, and they are more spiritualistic than we ourselves were before. So this is the sign of this movement in constant progress. In other hand, Allan Kardec tells us, and that's our last chapter today, the last slide today. What distinguishes, on the contrary, the backward spirits is at first the revolt against God for the refusal to recognize any power superior to humanity or to humankind. Then the instinctive propensity for degrading passions, the anti-fraternal feelings of selfishness, pride, attachment to all that is material. These are the vices of which the earth must be cleansed by the remoteness of those who refuse to improve, for they are incompatible with the kingdom of brotherhood, and good men will always suffer from their contact. As long as earth is finally freed from them, men here on earth will walk unimpeded into the better future that is in store for them from the beginning, as a reward for their efforts and perseverance, awaiting even more complete clearance, opening them to the more superior worlds. So, in this chapter, in this item, Allan Kardec is saying the characteristics that we can see in the backward spirits, the evil inclined spirits. They can be distinguished on the contrary of the good ones. By its revolt against God, they don't accept the idea that God is ruling our lives. They refuse to recognize any superior power other than human knowledge or human kind, and they still have the instinctive propensity for degrading passions in all kinds of vices, and also they have the flag of anti-fraternal feelings, of selfishness, pride, and also are very materialistic, bound to. And those vices are the ones that earth must be cleansed of. And the only way, Allan Kardec is saying, that this will happen is by the exile of this group, the expulsion of this group of spirits, souls, and also incarnate beings that refuse to improve themselves, so that they put themselves in a way that they are completely incompatible with the kingdom of brotherhood that are awaiting us, and the kingdom of the good and the spiritual world that are awaiting us in the regenerative process. And so that to put a stop in the suffering of the good men that are here incarnate or also inhabitant of the spiritual plans, this process of exile, of expulsion, is a natural order of things. And Allan Kardec also is relating us to this hope that once Earth is freed from this kind of influence, bad influence, we will be unimpeded into the better future that is awaiting for us, as Jesus himself told us that we would have the land, the earth, if we act with peace and with fraternity, so that we would be rewarded for all of our efforts and perseverance on the good, awaiting even more complete clearance after that, opening us to a more superior world's relations. So we are in a very special moment of our lives, of our spiritual lives as a whole, not only the lives of that we are having here on earth as incarnates, but our spiritual life as a whole, a very important moment, so that the only thing that Jesus asks of us is to stay in his pathway of good, fraternity, and love. May God help us understand that and may we have the courage to do so. Thank you so much for listening. We are very happy to have you here. As I told you, in Kardec Radio, in DSA, Discover Spiritism Network, and Spiritism Dissemination. We will be with you all the next week on Wednesday to continue to study this chapter of Allan Kardec's work. Thank you so much and have all a good night.